to the soil. But I'll show you that we have a lot of problems with cardiovascular exercise. It's another big industry. It's a bunch of crap, most of it. Okay. I mean, there's applications for it, but it has to be used intelligently, like vitamins or anything else. I mean, if you just willy-nilly cardio everybody, why does most people do cardio? For their heart. Well, we never had any heart attacks till 1921. And I say to people all the time, well, when were you doing cardio training? Oh, we had to do that on hunting. Well, you've obviously never been hunting. I grew up hunting. You go running through the woods, you'll starve to death, man. Those animals that know you're coming, they'll be at home having a Starbucks before you're there. Okay? You got to sneak up on stuff. So what do we have today? We've got not the wheel of life, the wheel of death. We've got damaged, denatured, organically deficient, microorganism deficient, and electrically deficient soils. We're nutrient deficient plants. We're heavily contaminated, 2 billion pounds a year in the U.S. alone, which makes sick animals. And oh, by the way, if you didn't know this, it might interest you to know this. The same exact companies that make drugs for human beings make them for the veterinarians. So as long as the animals are sick, they're really doing well. So what have I shown you? If you ruin the soils and keep them that way, you keep the plants sick, which makes sure the animals are sick, and when you sell drugs to plants, animals, and humans, you got a hell of a market. To the tune of about $175 billion in drug sales alone. 85% of Americans right now are on at least one prescription medical drug. In the year 2002, doctors wrote 3 billion medical drug prescriptions. That's enough prescriptions in the United States alone for every man, woman, and child to have a fresh prescription every month, 12 months of the year. Every man, woman, and child. Right? I would say that's a booming business. What's the business? Disease. What's our business? Health. Right? You can't get it out of a can, folks. Adam and Eve. Remember them? What was Adam? Soil. What was Eve? Life force. We are killing Adam and Eve. We are ruining Adam and Eve. You ruin the soil, you ruin the ground, you ruin Adam, the yang force. You ruin Eve, you ruin yin, you ruin the yin force. No yin, no yang, guess what you got, folks? An empty circle. There's a name for that. Not in the physical domain. If we keep it up, we better hope like hell there is a heaven. Because there's not many other options. We are ruining Adam and Eve. Now, I want to tell you something. There's 2 common reactions to living the way most people are living. One is called a burnout, and the other one's called a brownout. This is my own terminology, so I'll explain what I mean. A burnout means you start getting a lot of inflammation in your body. As soon as your digestive system quits working, undigested food particles get through, overtax your liver, overtax your kidneys, and your immune system starts attacking it, and you get inflammatory problems, and you start seeing all sorts of autoimmune reactions. We've got huge increases in arthritis. We've got all sorts of chronic diseases all over the place, all over the world, going like crazy right now. And they're inflammatory based. The most heavily prescribed drugs in the world are anti-inflammatory drugs. Why? Because when people start getting tired because there's not nutrition in the soil, what do? They turn to drugs and pills and excessive consumption of stimulating beverages like coffee, Red Bull, Ma Huang, ephedra, all these stimulant drinks. Look in the gym, you walk in the gym and half the stuff in the refrigerator glows in the dark, for God's sakes. That's not food. That's not even for human consumption. Where in nature can you find something that's fluorescent blue? Right? I've got a simple rule. If you can't pronounce a word on the label, don't put it in your mouth. Your liver ain't going to like it. Have you ever noticed almost anything a human being's designed to eat you can pronounce? Can you say chicken? Carrot? Potato? Hot dog? That'll kill you, right? You can say that, but don't eat it. Okay, so look at this. The more tired you get, the more people start leaning on tricks to keep their body functioning. Why? They're running into a biological crisis. Their biological systems are crashing and the body is striving to stay alive. It's doing everything it can. So people are turning to what is most heavily marketed to them, even in the exercise and healthcare industries. We are being sold absolute crap in the name of health and fitness. And it is garbage, and it is not working. And I give tests in large audiences. Like right now, if I was to question you guys with one of those questionnaires, you'd find the statistics amongst you is not much different than the public as far as what's wrong with your bodies. So exercise itself and cheap supplements won't do it. We got to get down to the absolute basics of health, or we're going to be gone, folks. And look at this. A study in Australia showed that 60% of Australian 9-year-old children said Ronald McDonald knew more about nutrition than their mother did. Also, Australia last year passed United States for obesity. A country, Australians are normally rugged, outgoing people. I've been lecturing there for many, many years. I've watched the whole country change. They've just Americanized the hell out of the place, and they've passed us for obesity. Can you imagine that? That's radical. I could tell you all sorts of stories about McDonald's, but I'll just tell you this. Don't bloody eat there. Okay? So what do we have? I say we got the dawn of the dead. Okay? Everybody's inflamed. We've got inflammatory problems left, right, and center, head to toe. You name the system, I'll tell you about an inflammatory disease somebody's got. Half of you in this room are probably on anti-inflammatories because you are sucking in things that are fatiguing the system. If you get tired after you eat, there's a simple formula. It means that whatever you ate is taking more energy out of your body than to digest, assimilate, metabolize, and eliminate than it put in. So you keep going into an energy crisis. So when you turn to things repeatedly that stimulate the body but don't give nutrition, you get what the Indians called empty fire. Energy without nutrition, and that is a fast way to kill yourself. Okay, slowly. The next thing, if you have inflammatory processes that run wild long enough, they will utilize all your nutrition. To stay alive, the body will divert all its energy away from sex hormones into controlling inflammation and running yours, because cortisol is your primary anti-inflammatory, you see. Cortisol is your primary stress hormone. So whenever you got a bunch of inflammation in your body thinks you're running for your life or fighting for your life, and it suppresses sex hormone production. So what do we have today? We have all sorts of guys going to the gym and they can't figure out why they can't get big. I've had 19 and 20-year-old guys tell me 50 times, no matter what I do in the gym, I can't put on any muscle, right? I said, I'll tell you why. Because what you're doing at the supermarket and what you're doing at the fast food restaurant and what you're doing at the vending machine in college is killing anything you can do in the gym. But I take supplements. Oh yeah, show them to me, right? And what do you see on the bottle? A bottle full of synthesized crap. I got piles of research showing that stuff's more stressful on your body. It's like drugs. If it's synthesized, you better be bloody careful with the way you use it. So what happens? When you keep on inflaming the body, you go in from an itis into an osis. You know what an osis is? Hardening and degeneration. Osteoporosis. Okay? Spinal stenosis. Foraminal stenosis. Tendinosis. You get an osis, long rehab process if it can be done. When you burn out the biological energy systems, you go from an itis. An itis is an attempt to fix something. When you go into an osis, the body says, that's it, I give up. I'm out of energy, I'm out of nutrition, I'm out of trying. That's it. The best I can do is just freeze you. Okay? So you see fixed thoracic skeletons. You see joints that won't move. You see joints that aches. You go into what I call a farming term, a brownout. Right? A farmer. You mention brownout around a farmer and they get nervous. It's kind of like saying staph infection to a doctor. Oh, don't say that, right? Brownout, that's trouble. That's an osis. So what does a brownout look like? Well, you keep doing that to the soils. Remember, you get rid of the earthworms. What do you get rid of? You get rid of the birds. You get rid of the birds, you get rid of bird poop. We need diversity in animals because the diversity in the poop brings diversity of nutrition to the microorganisms, which brings diversity of nutrition to your plants, which brings diversity of nutrition to you. Right? So what do you see? Now we got birds landing on dead flowers going, well, what the hell am I going to eat here? So they're having to migrate until, if you read the book, The Future of Life by Edward O. Wilson, one of the most famous naturalists that ever lives, he says white man, or modern man has done more damage and killed more living species in the last 40 years than all man prior to him.